the funerary scene of all the images associated with ancient Egypt. The funerary scene is probably the one that is most frequently duplicated in books and art prints. This scene depicts what occurs after a person has died. Beginning with the upper left-hand corner, the deceased appears before a panel of 14 judges to make an accounting for his deeds during life. The Ankh, the key of life, appears in the hands of some of the judges. Next, below, the jackal god Anubis, who represents the underworld and mummification, leads the deceased before the scale. In his hand, Anubis holds the Ankh. Anubis then weighs the heart of the deceased, left tray, against the feather of Maat, goddess of truth and justice, right tray. In some drawings, the full goddess Maat, not just her feather, is shown seated on the tray. Note that Maat's head, crowned by the feather, also appears atop the fulcrum of the scale. If the heart of the deceased outweighs the feather, then the deceased has a heart which has been made heavy with evil deeds. In that event, Ammit, the god with the crocodile head and hippopotamus legs, will devour the heart, condemning the deceased to oblivion for eternity. But if the feather outweighs the heart, then the deceased has led a righteous life and may be presented before Osiris to join the afterlife. Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, stands at the ready to record the outcome. The deceased is then led to Osiris by Horus, the god with the falcon head. Note the Ankh in Horus' hand. Horus represents the personification of the pharaoh during life, and his father Osiris represents the personification of the pharaoh after death. Osiris, lord of the underworld, sits on his throne, represented as a mummy. On his head is the white crown of Lower Egypt, the north. He holds the symbols of Egyptian kingship in his hands, the shepherd's crook to symbolize his role as shepherd of mankind, and the flail to represent his ability to separate the wheat from the chaff. Behind him stand his wife Isis and her sister Nephthys. Isis is the one in red, and Nephthys is the one in green. Together, Osiris, Isis, and Nephthys welcome the deceased to the underworld. The Tree of Life. On the Tree of Life, the birds represent the various stages of human life. Starting in the lower right-hand corner and proceeding counterclockwise. The light gray bird symbolizes infancy. The red bird symbolizes childhood. The green bird symbolizes youth. The blue bird symbolizes adulthood. The orange bird symbolizes old age. In ancient Egypt, the direction east was considered the direction of life, because the sun rose in the east. West was considered the direction of death, of entering the underworld, because the sun set in the west. They believed that during the night, the sun traveled through the underworld to make its way back to the east so it could rise in the east again on the next day. On the Tree of Life, note that the birds representing the first 4 phases of life all face to the east, but the bird representing old age faces to the west, anticipating the approach of death. Musicians and dancers. When Amenhotep IV, also known as Akhenaten, was pharaoh, he decreed that artists should create images showing everyday life. Up until then, art was very focused on scenes showing topics related to death and the afterlife. Concerned that future generations would believe that the Egyptians were obsessed with death, he commissioned artwork that showed everyday activities such as making music and dancing. On the heads of the musicians, you will see cones made of perfumed wax. As the heat from the room and the women's bodies melts the wax, it releases its scent into their hair.